We're here talking with Texe Mars, and to explain to people on the web, they keep getting confused by this at prisonplanet.tv, and then when people grab it and post it all over the internet, we have a live radio show in here, and then there's about 14 minutes of ads an hour, and so I don't want to waste time with somebody like Texe when he comes in, so we will then talk behind the scenes so that you can also watch us talking here, and what I tend to do is then break it up, though, get into another subject, a little mini subject, during the 3 or 4 minute break, depending on how long it is, and then come back to what we were discussing with the full audience. And Texe, I'm sure, can figure that out, but some of the guests are having a problem with it. Texe, again, it is just great seeing you. People are getting really excited about the new book, Mysterious Monuments, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. Our email's going crazy. And here's the reason why. So many people listen to your program, they listen to my program, they buy books and they buy videos. But what was missing, perhaps, because so many people are skeptics. So many people watch the control mass media and they're lied to and propagandized. But what Mysterious Monuments does for the first time is show that there is physical forensic evidence.
It's everywhere.
Like CSI.
And then it's not just what's in your book. Once they know the language, they see it everywhere.
Oh, yes, because this is an encyclopedia of secret Illuminati designs, Masonic architecture, and occult places. And what I do is show what all the symbology means. What is the numerology? Why is the Washington Monument, an Egyptian obelisk, exactly 555 feet tall? Well, it's because 5 is the number of regeneration. And it's the number of the death of the old, you see, and the bringing in of the new order. So we have a triple witching, you might say, with 555. But in Houston, Texas, they're planning to build a great goddess statue. They call her the Spirit of Houston. And, of course, she is a sex goddess. And she's exactly 555 feet tall, the same as the Washington Monument. So everything is done with numbers. And again, I want to tell people, I want people to understand something. Sometimes this monumental architecture is inaugurated on an astrologically auspicious day, but also it has to go along with the numbers. For example, and by the way, usually when this architecture is begun, it begins a great period of bloodshed.
This is too important.
History.
Come back and recap and get into all this when we come back in about 15 seconds, Texe, because this is so important, and we'll show people all these great images that you're kind enough to show us. We have Texe Mars here with us. We're going back into the main transmission in T-minus 5 seconds. Here we go.
Well, I'm not the kind to kiss and tell, but I've been seeing...
We are back live. I have run into quite a few Hollywood people over the years, and a lot of prominent folks have really sought me out. And it happened once, it happened twice, it happened 3 times. And you hear about Ronald Reagan, what time he give a speech, what day he give a speech, what color tie. They would consult with 3 different astrologers. Tony Blair being possessed by the spirit of the light each morning. We talked about that a few weeks ago with Texe. And people couldn't believe it. They Googled it and found all the mainstream news and freaked out. And Times of London, BBC, you name it. But I don't put any stock in all that stuff. I know it's dangerous. I stay away from it, whether it's real or not, that whole culture. But, I was born on 2/11/74. And separately, I guess these globalists, I guess even the police, when they're looking at you at high levels, they go and look at when you're born, and they do charts, and then also the date and the numerology. And when I had 3 separate prominent people go, I've looked into your date of birth, and 2/11/74. And you put the 2 and the 11 together, and the 74 makes 11, and this is the best number you can have for your birth. And then we did your chart. We found out when you were born at 1 o'clock in the morning on this day when Mars was in the transit with this. But the point is, it's all gobbledygook, but they live it. They are literally obsessed. And that's the language they operate off of, and numerology. And behind the scenes, Texe was getting into it. Recap some of what you said and then get more into it. Please, Texe Mars.
Well, Alex, I was thinking while you were talking about that. In World War II, British intelligence, working with the OSS, which is the precursor of the CIA, the United States, did the astrological chart on Adolf Hitler and Himmler. Well, can you imagine here? We're in the midst of World War II. They're doing the astrological chart. They want to understand the personality of Hitler and Himmler. one of the things we have to understand is that the Illuminist elite have this monumental architecture. Remember, they are empire builders, and architecture is a great part of that. Hitler, for example, had his own personal architect. They say he spent more time than even war making and war planning with Albert Speer, his architect. And he had great drawings. Remember, he considered himself a little bit of an artist architect. And so he had these fantastic plans. Stalin also had his architects all around him. They tore down one of the most famous churches, just razed it to the ground in Moscow so they could build a great temple, to
the Soviet man.
Monument. Yeah, to the Soviet man with Lenin at the top, raising his hand and looking toward the prince of the power of the air, which the Bible says is Satan. Then
Lenin, as I learned from you, and then I went and found it in mainline history books, he was obsessed with Lucifer and blood and death and just a complete maniac, and would, like you said, go to an island and just murder little bunny rabbits.
He was a monster. He kept calling for more blood. Here again, we have the death situation. Let me give people a little picture of this. Now, this is. And I know this is the radio, but this is the great Maltese Temple of Blood that has been built in Santo Domingo, the Dominican Republic, off the coast of the United States. Now, this is the other part of, Haiti's on one side, and there is Dominican Republic. They built this, and they began the planning for this, Alex, in 1939. Now, they had the foresight to build this thing, designing. Remember, 1939 kicked off World War II, and they began the building. With this, and the reason this was so important, remember, great bloodshed began. 50 million people perished in World War II. They were planning this great temple. Now, 1992, they had the grand opening of this. Everybody was there.
Meanwhile, Bush is announcing 1,000 points of light, simultaneously all sorts of weird celebrations all over the world. The New Agers are on top mountains calling in the New Age.
The harmonic convergence met and so forth. And they were having the great Earth Day situations. Now, what is this? It's a gigantic building. It's many football fields long. It's bigger than the U.S. Capitol building. It's shaped like a great Mayan temple. In fact, there's a great Mayan pyramid on top of it with a gigantic laser light. They actually create the image of the beast in the sky.
That shines out of the torch was another Illuminati symbol.
Remember those Mayan temples and the millions of people who were sacrificed to the sun god, to Lucifer, in those Mayan, Incan, Aztec temples in Meso and South Central America.
And I'm noticing, as you said, there's no windows in this sector.
There's no window in this gigantic thing. But I understand that some people claim that there are many prison cells, many dungeons, torture centers in this. Now, when this first came to my attention, the report to me was that this is going to be used. People will be taken on jets, dissidents in America, okay, resistors to the New World Order, will be taken on jet aircraft, brought here, tortured, and disposed of. And I said, no, that can't. Why would they take people on jet aircraft? Well, can you believe it? Extraordinary rendition is the euphemism they used. We're picking up people who resist the New World Order, calling them potential terrorists, and we now have a system, according to European reports, 39 gulags around the world. I want to ask the question, is this Maltese Temple of Blood, inaugurated in 1992, was this not a precursor to what we have today? Two great wars in the Middle East, maybe another one to come. Now, everywhere you go, the New York World Trade Centers were brought down, these two great towers. But prior to bringing them down, they erected 4 great towers with pyramidal structures on top. They call it the World Financial Center, and it sits right on the harbor at New York City. So they built 4, each one being a corner of the world, the 4 corners of the world. Now, why did they bring down the 2 World Trade Center towers? This was the signal. This was the Illuminatist goal. They were saying it is the end of the American superiority in the World Financial Center. At the same time, they were planning to bring down the 2 World Trade Center towers, which would mean the end of American glory, you see, the end of the dollar. Over in Europe, they were building a great statue of the goddess, and she is holding up, and I have a picture of her in my book, she is holding up the euro. And beneath her, in a supine, cowering, admiring position, are the people of the world. This is a statue.
About where is that? Because I remember seeing that. It's incredible.
Yeah. This is on pages let's see. Yeah, page 57 in Mysterious Monuments. There is the Euro goddess, and look at her. You can see the picture. She's holding up the euro. She's exalting the euro among all the nations of the world. And then there's
a pyramid structure made up of basically crushed people who are supine on their backs.
And not only that, over in Berlin, Germany, they had a huge, and I have the headline in this book, I think that's page 41, the Reichstag Reborn. But it's not just the old, outside it looks like the Reichstag, but inside they have a great inverse, a cone or pyramid